If you love black music, you got to check out Q Points.
I'm Sir Daniel, and I'm a DJ.
I'm J Ray, a lover of black music history.
Join us as two music heads give you the lowdown on everything from the dopest MCs to hip hop and fashion.
Listen to Q Points on your favorite podcast platform and check out our website at qpoints.com.
That's QUEUE points.com. Hell yeah. Welcome back to another episode of Q Points Podcast, dropping needle on black music history. I am DJ Sir Daniel.
What's happening, y'all? My name is J Ray, sometimes known by my government as Johnny Ray Cornegave III. Good evening.
Thank you, listener, for tuning in and joining us once again for another dope episode of Q Points Podcast. I am super excited about this podcast. Listen, we're like, Jerry and I are literally just running our mouths, and then we look up and say, oh, wait a minute, we're supposed to start this show. There's people waiting for us to, on the live, waiting for us to come through, and we just sitting, just running our mouths. But you know what? That's J Ray and Sir Daniel. That's Q Points Podcast in a nutshell. How you doing this fine day, sir?
I am doing great. You know what, Sir Daniel? I'm going to call in that we are going to have a producer that is going to get us together and be like, y'all got to cut this. It's time to go live. We're about to go down. I'm going to call that in. I am doing incredibly well. Thank you so much for asking. It has been a good week. How about yourself? How you doing?
Same. Absolute wonderful week. Just ready for the weekend to come through so that we can get our R&R, and of course, Thursdays, which is the day that we record our show, mean the most to us. We love coming to do this, and we love talking about lots of different things. But J Ray, before we get started, please let the people know the most important factor, the most important thing, how they can keep connected to you and I and the Q Points Podcast brand.
Yes. So please, wherever you are watching or listening to Q Points, we encourage you to subscribe to the show. Hit the subscribe button. And if they have a notification bell, like for instance on YouTube, where you might be checking out the show, hit the notification bell so that you can be kept up to date when we drop videos. Because here's the thing. On YouTube in particular, we not only drop our regular show, we have our live show, we have clips, we have shorts, we have all types of stuff. So make sure that you hit that notification bell so you can know when Q Points drops something dope and new. If you are like, listen, I want to keep the lights on over at Q Points Land, we certainly would appreciate you. In fact, while I say that, we are going to shout out our newest Q Points insider. He's in the chat tonight. His name is Carlton. Carlton is one of Q Points' day ones, and Carlton is a new Q Points insider. So we wanted to shout Carlton out and say thank you. Be like Carlton and become a subscriber, and you can help keep the Q Points lights on so we can keep doing this thing. And you do that by visiting our website at qpoints.com and clicking the subscribe button. You can also shop our store at store.qpoints.com. And here's another free way to really stay up on what's going down. Join our newsletter. Our newsletter is popping. Magazine.qpoints.com. You not only get behind the scenes stuff about the show, you will also get stuff that additional stuff about some of the topics that we talk about on the show that don't make it into the show. So we put some of that in the newsletter. So it's not just show stuff, it's like other stuff too. So stay up with us. We just appreciate y'all. But the fact that y'all are here listening to this right now or watching this right now, we just appreciate that. So just keep doing that.
Totally, absolutely. So absolutely.
And
behind the scenes inside joke. Speaking of behind the scenes, that behind the scenes video of our discussion about an upcoming episode, Chef's Kiss. I love the edit on that. Such a fun time. You guys will really enjoy. You know, I call into that also a staff of people that are going
Yes.
to take a lot of the load off of us, especially J Ray, because J Ray does a lot of heavy lifting around here, and to
We
just
both
make
do.
sure that this show it keeps going and is quality. J Ray, let's get into it. Snoop Dogg from Death Row to Madison Avenue. You know, when I think of Snoop Dogg, I remember going with one of my high school buddies to the $1.50 movie on Memorial Drive. We went to see Deep Cover featuring Lawrence Fishburne. And I have to tell you, J Ray, I cannot remember much about that movie. And I have not revisited that movie in years. But what I do remember is the fantastic soundtrack and everybody going ape shit over a young man. He had to be about maybe 18, 19 years old. But this new MC on the block called Snoop Dogg. And of course, he had an amazing cosign with one of with a very precarious person, Dr. Dre. But
Yes.
he had he had the Dr. Dre cosign. But that's what I think of when I think of Snoop Dogg. I just remember going to that movie theater and hearing that voice come over those speakers and hearing that Deep Cover record on WRAS Rhythm and Vibes over the weekend and just thinking, wow, he's like super smooth. And he was definitely West Coast, but he wasn't I'm a tune out on this guy because he's from the West Coast. He gripped my attention. He
Yeah.
always had my attention.
Yeah. I too, Deep Cover is the moments, of course, that I remember being introduced to Snoop. And I think folks will have a tendency to be like, yo, Snoop Dogg, benefited from Dr. Dre. I actually think it's kind of the reverse. I think Dre needed Snoop at the time that they started working together. So of course, we know that Dre had left NWA acrimoniously, right? There's tons of stories about that. And needed Dre was always going to be a dope producer, but he needed a way out, right? He needed a hit. And I think that hooking up with Snoop breathed some new life into Dre, kind of coming out of NWA, having Snoop by his side, I think helped Dre to come out on top. I think that was really, really important. And I never saw Deep Cover. I never saw the movie. I only remember the song. And so I feel like I've seen the movie because I saw the video. But I will, right. But I will say that Snoop was mysterious to me because he was definitely, of course, a West Coast rapper, but he was clearly talented, but he wasn't grandstanding. You know how rappers like do a big boastful, I'm gonna be the most, whatever. This is for his first shot out. I felt like he slid up in that thing.
You're right. He has a Rakim quality to him because Rakim was always very just smooth and laid back and very to the point. The articulation was there, and we just and there was just something about that approach that grabs your attention. Yes, there's people that can be hollering and hoot and jumping around, hooting and hollering and yes y'all in. But then there's people that they'll take it down a notch and they'll slow down that flow so that you'll have to lean in and listen to every single thing that they're saying.
Yes.
And I think that might have been intentional
Mm-hmm.
because you've got everybody else being loud. Sometimes you got to say, I'm gonna slow it down and take it down a notch so you can check me out on
Yeah.
this thing right here. Okay, I'm gonna stop doing that, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm gonna apologize. But and so one of my earlier points, I was saying that he was West Coast, but I wouldn't have turned him off. And I say that because there was definitely this brewing. It was the East Coast West Coast thing that
It
was
was brewing.
starting to come
Mhm.
up just a little bit,
Yep.
you know. And at that point, the West Coast had really taken over the airwaves,
Mm-hmm.
and I was definitely, was still hollering New York, even though I didn't live there anymore. I still had Brooklyn on my back, son.
Mm-hmm.
I was that guy, that kind of high school kid. But and still represented for a lot of East Coast rappers and really dug the East Coast flavor of hip hop. But dag nabbit, if he didn't come along and shift the culture down to the way people were dressing, I can't wear Chucks. My feet are way too long to wear Chucks. It's just not a good look. That was not something that I could do or would do. But I would see people, a lot of people start to adapt the Dickie suits and
Mm-hmm.
the K Swiss and the hats
Mm-hmm.
representing with the letter of their name or whatever on it. And I could see his impact on young black men, especially in the culture. A lot of we talked about this. I saw a lot more people starting to grow their hair out
Mm-hmm.
and go back to the straight backs of the
Yep.
cornrows. Now, a lot of people have done that. That's not anything new. But you can't deny that there's something about seeing somebody who looks like you or somebody that you grew up with or from around the way that is presented on television that is looking that way with the straight backs that doesn't do something to you and say, you know what? I identify with that. I want to look like that. And
Yeah.
so you start to see that the culture shift and people even starting to dress like him. And yeah, and as far as the rap, and here's the thing that got me. I'll never forget hearing there was do you recall a DJ personality by the name of Ryan Cameron?
I do not.
Okay. So Ryan Cameron is definitely an Atlanta legend. Ryan had been on several radio stations, and I can't remember if this happened on one of his shows there or if it happened on an underground show. But there is a freestyle that Snoop Dogg did for Ryan Cameron that is still ranked as one of the dopest freestyles. When I say freestyle, and this is probably a Q Points conversation
Okay.
also, when I say a freestyle rhyme, I'm talking about off the head, meaning that it's not pre-written.
Pre-written.
Like he is strictly going off the head and just laying down bars to whatever beat the DJ threw on. And it was a good 5 minutes of him rhyming
Mm-hmm.
nonstop. And I remember they played. It was so dope that the college radio station that I would listen to on the weekends on Sunday nights played that as a song, played that freestyle, and to me that kind of solidified the the legend of Snoop Dogg that was going around. It's like, okay, not only is he so yeah, he's good with Dre, he's got the Dre cosign, and he's on this hit album, but he's nice.
Right.
Like he's an MC, he's a rapper's rapper. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's his influences he continued to list his influences mainly from the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Slick Rick,
Yep.
you know,
You can hear
um
that.
you can hear it. And so I think that started to endear him to me even more when it came to him being an MC and him giving it up for quote unquote real hip hop at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, okay, I like that guy.
Yeah. That is a precarious time too, because you actually talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
As more regional hip hop began to spread and grow, the West Coast became kind of the breakout of that time. I think the default of so many people, particularly from the Northeast, was to double down on, I mean, yeah, they could do that over there, but we created this over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember, even though I absolutely loved NWA's first album, absolutely loved Ice Cube's first. I'm squinting. Y'all can't see me, but I'm squinting. I loved what Ice Cube was doing, even though it was problematic and it has a lot of other
Yeah.
issues that we can talk about in 2023, but that's not what the show is about. I loved those dudes, but I was always going to prefer what was happening in terms of boom bap and East Coast hip hop, right?
Right.
So this was an interesting time. Like Snoop, I think, to your point, came in because it wasn't going to be Dre, right? It wasn't going to be Dre as an
No.
MC that was going to do it. Snoop came in and made us like turn our heads a little bit and be like, that's different. That sounds, to your point, that's giving me Slick Rick a little bit. I like that. And at the time, Dre was also refining what would become his signature production technique, which then took over the world like a year later. So I think Snoop's introduction to us opened up a lot of possibilities. I'm curious, Sir Daniel. I think Snoop, I'm curious about your thoughts on this. I think Snoop is possibly one of those one of one artists that kind of just shows up and are just so good. They can't be replicated. And it's that thing, like you can't quite put your finger on what that thing is. Snoop had that. He had that thing.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Um, yeah, there's nobody was touching that. Now I will say, okay, so Daz and Corrupt
Mm-hmm.
were probably the other two like rapidy rap guys that were on that were on death row with Snoop. Like you could tell, and of course we can't forget Lady of Rage.
Of course not.
Like that assembly of MCs, and Lady of Rage isn't even from the West Coast; she's from Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
and Corrupt is from Philly.
Yep.
So you still have an East Coast influence in that roster of MCs, but Snoop managed to be himself throughout the whole time, brought himself, but also brought the rhymes, the MCs. You talking about somebody that all he would do, he would write his rhymes, he would rap to different instrumentals. He was constantly doing that. And that's just somebody who embraced the culture and embraced the craft. No matter where he would, I think no matter where Snoop Dogg would have came from, if he came from Alabama, if he came from Miami, if he came from Massachusetts, wherever, he would have still brought himself, and that would have still drawn us in. And so we have Snoop, but we haven't, like you were talking about, Dre's production. Let's just keep it a buck. Dre's production had people creating G-Funk remixes that ain't never had a G-Funk remix in their life. I'm talking East Coast rappers.
East Coast rappers, y'all. Like, yo, sitting on Chrome, Master Ace has an entire G-Funk inspired album where he took Jeep Ass Nigga and then flipped it into Born to Roll, and it had a whole other life. It actually had he had a pop hit off of that joint.
Yeah.
Like Dre's production at that point literally kind of changed. It changed everything. It won, God bless him, made George Clinton rich. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
Whereas Public Enemy had kept James Brown's pockets lined. Dre had what Roger and Zapp getting paid,
Mm-hmm.
and George Clinton getting paid,
That's right.
and that was also really unique too at the time. Like, to our point, East Coast rappers had really leaned into like the James Brown bag.
Mm-hmm.
What Dre did was like lean into that Roger and Zapp bag and that George
Mm-hmm.
Clinton bag and give us a new sound. And and Snoop literally just kind of rode in on that thing. Because Nothing But a G Thing, I still
It
that video and that song. So sidebar, that song has made it into so many playlists that I've done over time because it's just a dope joint.
it literally, it's like pouring. This is corny, but it's like getting a fresh stack of pancakes and pouring syrup on it. It's just this really dope combination of something that will you will fill up on and feel good about it and you want more. It I can't not ever remember a summer since my junior year of high school that song has not shown up somewhere. And let's not forget, you brought up Master Ace and Sitting on Chrome.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not forget car culture.
Yeah.
West Coast culture and car culture go hand in hand, and I think that's something that kind of spread across the nation.
Mm-hmm.
Car culture became a thing, specifically in the West and the Midwest, down south here as well. People in
Mm-hmm.
the box Chevys, young men. Here's the thing: young men, especially young black men here in the South, could save up enough money to get a box Chevy secondhand
Mm-hmm.
and make it their own, trick it out the way that they could, the best that they could, make it luxurious. And that's what black people do. We
Yeah.
take what we have and we make it luxurious. What we also do is we're going to put some speakers in that back.
That bass
We're
gonna
going to
be
put some,
pumping.
it's going to knock. And so, Dre and Snoop and that whole movement tapped into that fact that they tapped into the black male psyche, the black male ego of that time, and say, these are what these brothers need right now. We need them something to drive around in, because that's what you're going to do. That's your own piece of luxury right there. Is
Mm.
that box Chevy? Is that Buick? Is that in my case that that 86 Mercury Sable, God bless it.
I had a
That did
what did I have? I had the Mercury Topaz. It was the smaller version.
Ooh, the Topaz. I also had an 86 Ford LTD that
Oh,
was power.
that joint is big.
What? Yeah, it was mid-size. Mine was mid-size, but it did have the bench seat, or as I call it, the all-together seat, where if you want to move
Yeah.
it up, it's
Everybody
like, hey,
moving.
y'all ready? We all moving up. Sidebar real quick. Did I tell you that story of the time I got stuck in Freaknik traffic in my 86 LTD?
You did not, but that seems like a perfect car to get stuck in Freaknik traffic in.
No, it was not, and I'll tell you why. It was no cassette player, no CD player. It was just strictly a FM radio. It didn't have no sound system. I had manual windows. So and, and I'm trying to remember
Did
if
you
I
have
had air
AC?
conditioning.
Please say
I'm,
you
I'm
had
trying to
AC.
remember. I cannot remember if I had AC or not. But I know I had heat, because in the wintertime that joint was blowing and I was warm in that joint. But yes, I got stuck in freaking traffic in my powder blue, rust on one eye of my of my car lights, headlights was rusted over. So, and you know what they used to call it in school? They would say, "Ah, here comes the blue goose."
Not
Yep, they call my car the blue goose. Yep. But I said all that to say that is a young black man's piece of luxury, piece
Mhm.
of something that he can hold on to. And what you play in your system becomes part of that experience. And so that's how that So I think that's why Snoop Dogg means so much to our generation, especially
Mhm.
to young black men.
Yeah. And Snoop had a way of just kind of embodying, he always seemed really sure of who he was, because
Mm-hmm.
let's move into his debut album. And I feel like
Okay.
this is really important too, because the Chronic was huge. The Chronic was huge. And so the bar was already really high for Snoop's debut album. It was either going to sink and torpedo, or it was going to go nuclear. And Doggy Style exceeded expectations, I feel like, in many ways. And also added, Snoop had some dimension that you
Mm-hmm.
alluded to earlier. Because I think what, in researching this show, you talked about the fact that, Snoop as a freestyler, like that 5-minute freestyle, and how important that was of coming off the head. That was a precursor to, I think, the creativity of Snoop that I think now we get to experience in 2023. Because honestly, Snoop has an entire pop career that I did not realize until, because these are songs I don't listen to. Like, he has a song with like BB Rexa and like all of these like white women singers that
Listen,
are,
Katy Perry, that
yep,
California Girls by Katy Perry is an enormous hit
yes,
featuring Snoop Dogg.
featuring Snoop. So he has this whole thing, but I think what this all was saying is like, yes, he has this great producer in Dre, but this person is also incredibly creative and has vision. And I think Doggy Style was like, here is what I want my debut album to be, right? And we get this debut album, it goes nuts. Um and produces just some of the dopest hip hop of that era. And I know that for me, one of the things that I always have a soft spot for is when my parents can see themselves in it. My
Mm-hmm.
dad was so into Snoop and what he was doing, because I had the whole, it had the Dolomite angle, you
Mm-hmm.
had the dramatics in there, you had Gin and Juice was just like a cruising joint. He loved Gin and Juice as a song because it reminded him of 70s funk and soul joints, right? So Snoop was being innovative, but he was bridge building at the same time. And this is a young cat.
Absolutely. Snoop, to your point about that, specifically that video, I think it's a Doggy Dog World,
Mm-hmm.
where he had all of the black exploitation stars of the 70s make cameos in that video because that was important to his childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was so important to the culture that he shared that he gave them some love, because those actors,
Yeah.
culturally we laud them and they mean something to us, but outside of that, in that specific time, they weren't, a lot of them probably weren't respected
Yep.
in Hollywood. There was people, they looked down on black exploitation flicks as D-list movies or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but they meant something to us because we saw ourselves there. But that also brings me to another point. Snoop Dogg introduced something that is a lot of people had issue with, but he brought pimp culture into hip hop as well.
He
Or
did.
at least other people have referred to them. Now I cannot discredit Too Short,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
because Too Short has
Mm-hmm.
always referred to himself as a pimp.
Mm-hmm.
But I just clearly recall seeing in Snoop Dogg's videos, like, that was my first clear representation of Snoop Dogg wearing, first of all, letting his hair down and getting it curled, and then the rings, the coat, the whole nine, and we saw the Snoop Dogg pimp persona, and then he also brought real pimps
Mm-hmm.
into the spotlight, like your who's
Bishop
the
Don
Don Juan.
Juan.
He brought those people into the spotlight, into the videos, and so before that, nobody heard of pimp cups.
Right. And everybody was blinging out a cup after that.
Today, you have white women in the Middle West that have a shout, and they call that their pimp cup.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because of the influence of a young Calvin Brodus.
There are two types of people in the world: those who complain about the state of today's music and those who dig. I'm Jason Randall Smith, and I invite you to check out Radio B-Sots, Both Sides of the Surface, a music podcast championing the work of independent artists from around the way to around the world. With a primary focus on Creative Commons licensed music, think of this show as a never-ending virtual crate dig through a parallel universe of online labels, seeking out the hip-hop, soul, jazz, funk, and electronic music gems that are often hiding in plain sight, and hopefully demystifying the world of Creative Commons along the way, one song at a time. You can find Radio B-Sots wherever you listen to podcasts. For more information, visit the website at bsots.com. That's BSOTS.com.
Stuff can be two things, right?
Yes.
So at that same time, while Snoop is bringing pimp culture in there, we are entering, I think, the moment of hip hop where there is just blatant misogyny everywhere. Yeah. It's a lot of bitches and hoes. It's a lot of, it's bringing pimp culture to the mainstream, right?
Well, you said it, the Gin and Juice video, which clearly is a favorite. Remember what happens in that video with the young lady?
Was that the beer? Was that Gin and Juice? I thought that was nothing but a G thing. I don't know. They all run together. But the beer where he pours it on top of her, like she comes in, she's a hot girl, and they degrade her by pouring the 40s on her. But you get all of that show. Now it's showing up in music videos. Mm-hmm. And then this gets complicated, right? Because the music videos now there's censorship of music videos that need to happen. So, there's
y'all remember all that blurring
it was videos? So much pixels and blurs and
you couldn't see the logos. It was okay, so it was the G Thing video, but they were blurring out logos like crazy. If there was a little bit of nudity, they were blurring that out. Now I do recall MTV was real heavy-handed with the blurring.
Right, BET was not as heavy with it initially. Initially, but yeah, MTV definitely. But here's the thing: I don't know that the censor or the politicians and the censors realize this. That actually made the stuff cooler. The parental advisory sticker, that was the record you wanted. You're like, no. I want the one with the sticker.
You absolutely wanted that version.
I want to see the version of this video without the blurs. It made it cooler.
And I think, and we have Madonna to thank for this, I think by that point, if they were banning a video on television, on national television, you could go to the record store and purchase the video on VHS.
Yep.
So all of that blurring and editing videos to make it more palatable for middle America just force those things into to higher sales and to more popularity, because the more you keep things away from people, the more they want them.
So you have this young cat at the center of all of this, and really has shifted the way folks rhyme, right? And this is period in hip hop. And then a bunch of stuff starts to happen, right? That really Snoop was kind of not out of the spotlight. He was in trouble for like an extended period of time following his first album. We get the murder was the case video happens and all of that. There was a lot going on. Death Row. We were now in the thick of the East Coast, West Coast thing. You know what I forgot about until researching this show? For whatever reason, I felt like the East Coast, West Coast thing really didn't pop until like 96. But no, it was really 95 because the New York, New York was on the Dog Pound record, and that was 95. And I'm like, wow, that was only like 2 years after Snoop's debut. So already we're now in this huge coastal war that Death Row and Bad Boy are kind of the faces of for the most part, but it's really coastal at that point, and that's crazy.
It's crazy. It's very coastal, and I think really the gasoline was poured on at the Source Awards.
Yep.
The very infamous Source Awards, where I would imagine there was a lot of tension in that room.
Yep.
You know, because let's just face it, Suge Knight was just stirring the pot.
He was stirring the pot.
Talking a lot of mess and stirring the pot, literally just insulting people that were sitting right in front of him. And, you know, made it really hot in the room where you could see when Snoop came on stage, you could see he was disappointed because that hadn't happened before.
Right.
Like Snoop Dogg legit got a lot of love no matter where he went, specifically to New York, because New York was important to him.
Yeah.
Snoop is a hip hop fiend. Snoop will tell you about listening to tapes of Marley Marl and Roxanne Shante. He is a hip hop junkie, and to come to the birthplace where he thought he had love before and to be received like that and to hear the boos, that you could tell really shook him to his core and kind of put the battery in their back to do that whole New York video where he was stomping on the World Trade Towers, and Snoop kind of fell back. And I think that was the part around the time when Snoop kind of departed from Death Row.
Yeah, so this is leading into Snoop's wilderness. We call it Snoop's wilderness period. I think this also prepared him for the moment he's having today, where one, Snoop never stopped working, right? So he, of course, gets bought out of his contract. We know the story now. Master P, Snoop needs to get out of Death Row. Death Row it's gone too far, right? Pac is already dead. Snoop needs to get out because, of course, he's like, listen, I don't know if I can survive this. Master P saves him by buying him out of his contract over at Death Row. You know, money talks, and Suge, you know, he wrote that check. Suge let him go. And so Snoop enters this interesting No Limit period because, of course, No Limit was popping at that moment, but that was also really interesting. So you get Snoop, who is so heavily identified with California, now on a label in New Orleans, right? That's a thing. And it's interesting because I know all of those records exist. I've never really heard them. The only one from that era is towards the end, like that last one. I think it was the Dog Father, I think was like the last one. That was when the Neptunes and Timbaland started to kind of get into that music a little bit. I don't remember those records, but I know those records happened.
They did. They of course we got Down for My Hitters.
Yep.
If you're talking about the radio version, we know the song is, we know the real name of the song. We got that out of that No Limit Snoop Dogg collaboration. And it was, but you know what? It was divine timing, but because the South was having its emergence at that point.
Absolutely.
No Limit was everywhere. Then you have Atlanta and Outkast and everybody there doing their thing. And of course, you know, Miami was always around doing their thing. So it kind of made sense that he was, you know, ebbing and flowing along with what was going on in the industry, in hip hop.
This is curious to me because I think Black folks, we have a natural connection in the United States to the South.
Mhm.
The South is a place where we could kind of go and lay our head and return to, I think, for many folks. And so I do find it interesting that he would get down to the South to kind of rework things, right? And Mark McPherson just brought something in.
A
Don't forget
great
Snoop's
point.
roots are in Mississippi. He was born in Cali, but his parents are from Macomb. I think that is so important that
Very.
these folks from the South and that moment gave him room to figure out the future.
Mm. That's an excellent point. And speaking of him being from the Macomb family, let's not forget who is Snoop Dogg's relatives, but Brandy
Absolutely.
and Ray J.
Yep.
Brandy and
Right
Ray
from
J also
Mississippi.
from Macomb, Mississippi.
Yep.
So yeah, that's an excellent point. I didn't think about that. The South allowed him to regroup
Mm-hmm.
and to gather himself and to literally just set the stage for what he was about to walk into, which was that new era
Yep.
that you alluded to regarding, his pop era.
Yep.
We
Snoop had a
talked about
pop
his
era.
Snoop had a very successful pop era.
Mm-hmm.
Like we never, if you would have told me that the young man snarling and turning into a Doberman pincher in his video would have been popping champagne with Mariah Carey in their duet together, I would have said that's not going to happen. Never going to happen in a million years. But that happened. That particular song happens to be one of my favorite Mariah
Mm-hmm.
Carey songs
Yeah.
featuring Snoop Dogg and the production of the Neptunes.
Yeah.
And I think he made some really great relationships. Like again, he started off with a super producer.
Yep.
And found his way back into the comfort zone with two new sets of super producers,
Yep.
including Timbaland and the Neptunes.
Yep.
And again, in the South, in Virginia, because Virginia is in the South, folks.
Yes, it is.
We're not going to have that conversation. Virginia is in the South. And he really becomes a pop commodity, a fixture on radio
Yep.
and television.
Mm-hmm.
And is literally setting the stage for the next act in his career, in his life.
Yeah. There's lessons to be learned from persistence. Because here's the thing. He didn't stop working, right?
No.
So even during the weirdness of it all, he never stopped working. He never stopped producing. And ultimately that led to some major hits for him. It led to some major things. But I think also thinking about this moment in time, as he was setting up kind of his pop thing, I think also probably gave him some perspective and also showed hip hop what was possible too. So there are folks who will say rappers can only do this is what you do, you can only do that. I think Snoop proves time and time again that you can kind of reinvent yourself. As long as you keep working, you can reinvent yourself. And that's what he kept doing and is still doing like today. He's still reinventing himself.
He is. I think also what is undeniable about him is that level of cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's just cool is something that you are either born with, you either have it or you don't. And like I said earlier, that magnetism. I remember one time I was working at V103 and it was the V103 auto show.
Mm-hmm.
They had an auto show out in College Park and Snoop Dogg was the guest of honor, the performer of honor.
Nice.
And at that point, I think this was in that it was I think it was 2005. It was that Wilderness era where he had some hits, but you talk about still wielding that star power. I remember just God, did I get a picture with him? I can't remember because I think I did, but I don't have it.
Yeah.
But it was that thing of like, yo, this is Snoop. First of all, he's enormous, and
Right.
I'm not a short dude.
Right.
I'm not a short dude, and so if I look at him and say, "Damn, he's tall as hell,"
Mhm.
but it's like everybody was swarming. We were all like trying to get that moment with Snoop because he's just that iconic and he's just that cool. And that is just something that you cannot manufacture. And I think it's part of the formula of what made him the superstar that we know him as. And I think, you can't not talk about somebody that has such a hot music career and is fast becoming an icon in the culture and not put him on the big screen and
Oh,
not
of
have him in
course.
movies.
Yeah, Snoop is tailor made for movies. I will say that my favorite Snoop movie moment, I'm a horror fan. Bones is totally fun. If y'all have never seen Bones and you're into horror movies, definitely watch it. In the description, we'll make sure that we put a link to Dead Meat's kill count for Bones. But oh my god, so Carlton just put Soul Plane in the chat. That's a whole other conversation. But but yeah, Bones was for me show what the possibility of black horror could be, and then two, the fact that Snoop was playing like the main villain in that
Mm-hmm.
made a huge difference. So yeah, you put him on the big screen. He's tailor made for that. He is even when he's rapping and kind of doing his music thing, it does have a theatrical kind of component to it where it's almost like this is a character. I've
Mm-hmm.
always been curious of how much of Snoop is in all the stuff, right? So yeah, putting him on the big screen just made sense. I would have.
Like, putting him on Baby Boy, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
come on.
Right.
That
Oh
and
baby boy.
let's not forget all the No Limit movies, like I Got the Hookup. Again, that
All
he
the
you know,
No Limit movies.
like you said, he never stopped working.
Ever.
And that's something a lot of, if you look at the people who have made it through, have traversed the wilderness period in their career, they never stopped working, regardless of what it looked like. If it was a Hollywood blockbuster or not, if it was a mixtape, he was on it. If it
Yep.
was a No Limit production, he was on it. He was doing something to stay busy, and you know, he finally had his. We come to a point where in just these past few years, what
Full
really
circle.
made us bring up this topic is that Snoop Dogg has become the go-to person to sell everything.
It's crazy.
He
It's
is
him and Shaquille O'Neal. It's correct. Snoop Dogg is selling us like Corona.
he's selling us listen, he's selling us Corona, he's selling us wine, he's selling us Skechers. Jerry, I'm
Snoop.
literally waiting for the moment that Snoop Dogg is going to become an AARP spokesperson,
It's gonna
because
happen.
that's coming. It's coming.
Isn't he selling cookbooks with Martha Stewart too?
And here's something that we did not touch on. We did not talk about the impact Snoop Dogg had on weed culture. I mean,
Yes.
the album The Chronic literally squarely is about weed culture, but Snoop Dogg is synonymous with weed, and that's what's so miraculous, is that he is synonymous with weed and weed culture in this country, but yet and still he is a huge megastar across the board, regardless of the demographic, black, white, middle class, rich. He is so popular with so many people, despite his criminal
Mm-hmm.
past and all of those things that he came out from, and being a proponent of marijuana. And I think that's just magical, considering this is a black man
Yeah.
from Long Beach, California.
Yeah. Wow. You are absolutely right. You can't think about Snoop Dogg without thinking about weed. Right? It's
Hmm.
just what you're going to get. So the fact that he can also be somebody that, like I often say this, my mother loves Snoop. When she hears his voice on the radio, because he'll be selling us something or a song will come on, and she
Hmm.
knows his voice, and she will say, that boy really got himself together. He used to be a mess. He really got it together. He looked like that dog. I remember him. My mom, who knows nothing about hip hop, y'all,
Hmm.
remembers Snoop as a teen, as a young man, and now is like loves seeing him on TV as a grown adult working.
And I think that's something to be applauded. That's why it hurts so much when a lot of our hip hop pioneers pass away so
Mhm.
young.
Yeah.
I love seeing Snoop Dogg as a football coach to his kids'
Yes.
football team.
Right.
I love, those kinds of things are so endearing because it shows us the fullness of what black men are and can
Mm.
be in this culture. If we are just allowed to be and allowed to
Mhm.
be all the things that we'd like to be. That man is a football coach. He's a chef. I've seen him DJ a couple parties.
Yeah.
He is just that all around dude that if the culture, if this country would allow all of us to be.
Yeah, man. Like you have to respect. He has 20 albums, Sir Daniel. 20. So here's what I did in preparing for this show. Y'all, there are so many Snoop albums the majority of Snoop albums I haven't heard. Because Snoop, going back to that earlier point, when you were talking about the freestyling, Snoop is clearly incredibly prolific. Snoop is probably in the studio right now working on another album for 2023. He's just incredibly prolific. He's always putting something out. Snoop has like two albums from 2022. Like not one, two. Um he has one already out in 2023. Like Snoop has like new material out like now. So there is something to be said for walking in your truth and walking in um the fullness of who you are, and be damned with all the other things. Stuff can be two things. We're not talking about all of the negative things that have happened. We have heard about in terms of relationships and all of that stuff. We're not getting into those things for this show, but we recognize that those things exist too.
Yeah.
Um but once again, he works like a full human. He works like a full human. he just kind
Yeah.
of he just kind of does what it is that he's doing, and now he owns Death Row's name. Wow.
That part. I he literally is. If there is, and there are courses on hip hop in colleges, he definitely should. He's a whole chapter,
Mhm.
a whole study, probably possibly a whole course unto himself on navigating this business, and but making sure you pay homage to the craft,
Mhm.
but also a study in the it factor.
Yeah.
Because in entertainment, what do they tell you about all the time? People have to have the it factor. There's got to be something super special that people pick up on that makes you want to look at them or listen to them.
Mhm.
And Snoop Dogg has both of those things. He still has it to this day. Now, I think we can share our favorite moments, but I think you and I have a special, a very favorite moment, a
Mhm.
song that Snoop Dogg had,
Yeah.
and we both said it. Sensual seduction. Can we talk about that for a hot second?
Favorite, my favorite Snoop moment. Be- because it was so like, this is the kind of weird it's a black ass weird that I'm into. I want him to auto tune this thing. I want this weird ass video. I wanted every inch of that. And you still play that song today, and I still get my life. Sensual Seduction, really, I feel like is like Snoop's most pure. Like, it's a little hip hop, it's a little soul, it's a little funk, and it's a whole lot of just like him. It's good.
Well, I'm an 80s fanatic. It's squarely that 80s sound, like
Mm-hmm.
80s roller rink music,
Mm-hmm.
but also sounds like 80s porn music at the same time, which I think was done on purpose. And the video, like you said, was giving, like Jane Fonda workout videos. I don't know if any of y'all are old enough to remember this, but like maybe at like 4 o'clock in the morning when, so there was a time, kids, when the television broadcast would stop
It would literally stop, y'all.
overnight. There would be nothing on TV until maybe about 4 o'clock in the morning, and they figured that this is the time where these housewives would get up in the morning so they can exercise and look good for their husbands, and they would throw on these these very cheesy aerobics videos with women with side
And
ponytails
leg
and leotards and
warmers.
leg warmers, and that kind of stop and go video. And that's exactly what that video brings me back to. And I'm like, whoever did this is a genius. Some people say that nostalgia is a drug. It's totally a drug. Tap me right in, just give it to me. I love some good nostalgia. And Snoop Dogg was definitely the vehicle for that.
Yeah.
Somebody that could carry that off. You know, and we saw Snoop, master the stage 2 Super Bowls ago.
Yep. That was great.
And he was part of that whole Death Row,
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Dre
Yeah.
medley.
Yeah.
You know, two things, like you said, two things could be true at the same time. There's something that we just can't jive with one person in that whole clique. But then, you got Snoop, who is just like completely winning people's hearts
Mm-hmm.
all over the world. It's so wild. It's just really wild.
Yeah. I'm glad we took the opportunity to talk about Snoop, and this particular show actually connects to a couple other shows that we've done, of course, talking about the musicians and food, but also our conversation with Donovan X. Ramsey about his book, When Crack Was King. Um, Snoop is kind of, a through line in those conversations too. And so yeah, listen, it is, it's Snoop's world, y'all. Like we said, we just living in it. He's
Hell,
gonna, hell yeah.
hell yeah.
Let me pull this up really quick, because this is I'm gonna go back. Okay. I want all of y'all to definitely go to Spotify, and I want you to go to discography, and I want you to go to show all under Snoop Dogg. And I want you to be amazed at the amounts of things that are under Snoop Dogg's name. And what's so funny is I was skimming a bunch of tracks today. I was like, oh, that's actually dope. Like, it's so much, and so the point I'm making is he's been continuously year after year putting out stuff, and it's probably a lot of gems in there. So I'm glad we at least took some time to shout him out. Thank you, Snoop, for doing what
I
you do.
I am as well. I'm glad we did this. Really quick though, have you been keeping up with this whole story about the person that wrote that book about Tupac, and
Mm-mm.
his home being raided?
No.
Oh yeah, they raided the home. They took laptops and I guess writings. I think they're still, for whatever reason, I think they're still trying to figure out what this gentleman's connection is to the death of Tupac. I know we talked about Tupac briefly in this Snoop Dogg, but I just wanted to see if you were keeping abreast of it. They literally raided that man's home as Keith somebody, a known gangbanger who hung out with Death Row, who hung out with Pac and them, who was there the night of the shooting. He wrote this book. But somebody made a point. I don't know. At this point, it's like, what more are we trying to figure out here, or what more can be said? I don't know if anything, I don't know. I just brought that up just to see what you had thought about it and see if you had heard anything regarding that.
No, I haven't heard anything. And I think you ask a really important question about what more is there to gain.
Yeah.
Yes, I can understand definitely the families wanting some closure to things, but I think most of this other stuff is just kind of salacious. So
Absolutely.
as you can see, if this man wrote a book, he's trying to, make his coin, and that's, I ain't gonna get in the way of nobody's coin. I don't, it's like, sure, okay, I guess this is going to be a forever story.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do hope, I will say this, what I do see happening is I do think Snoop can write the legacy of Death Row. I do think there was a lot of good that came from that label. And I think so much of it got shrouded in like violence and just negativity, that I think we have an opportunity to, with Snoop at the helm, to really kind of right that ship, right? Because the legacy of Death Row was really in poor shape. So I think he is committed to doing right by it.
I think that's a wonderful place to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been as usual, this has been a great show. It's Q Points, and we are going to, come at the conversation as only J. Ray and I can. And we thank you, listener, for tuning in and for making this another great episode.
Yeah.
J. Ray, before we get up out of here, let them know one more time all the things that they need to do to make Q Points the number one podcast, or remain the number one podcast in the podcast sphere.
Boom. Listen, y'all, first things first. Wherever you are listening, wherever you're hearing our voice or watching our faces right now, make sure that you subscribe in that place and go ahead and click the notification bell so you can stay in tuned. That's free. It's a help. And the other thing you can do that's free and you can help is you can join the mailing list at magazine.qpoints.com. We got a bunch of dopeness over there that you should tune into. And if you want to go a step further, keep the lights on over in Q Points land, you can subscribe on our website at qpoints.com. Click the subscribe button, and you can shop our store at store.qpoints.com.
Sounds perfect. What do I say every time, J. Ray? In this life, you have a choice. You can either pick up the needle or you can let the record play. I am DJ Sir Daniel.
My name is J. Ray, y'all.
And y'all's busters better recognize that this is Q Points Podcast, dropping the needle on Black music history. We'll see you on the next go round.
Peace, y'all.